Hi everyone, this is Cece here. I just wanted to do a quick tutorial on how to use the Bob Ross inspired brush set to create happy trees, Bob Ross inspired happy trees. And so what I do, I'm going to head, for the sake of this demonstration, start with a pre-filled document that I filled with a background sky on its own layer and a set of the foreground or the hills on another layer. Between those two, I'm going to go ahead and add a layer for the trees themselves. I mean, you can go ahead and just do one layer and paint everything, but I like to keep everything separate so that I have the ability to go ahead and shift and edit within each element in the landscape. It's something that you can't do in traditional media, and that's something that's great about Procreate, is that you can go ahead and mock up a scene and see how it works before committing to using materials. It's a great way to use Procreate to augment your fine art practice in real life. So I'd already filled up a sky on the foreground, the hills, as I mentioned, and in between those two, I'm going to go ahead and lay in my trees on their own layer. I'm going to go ahead and lock the sky and the hills so that I don't accidentally paint into them, because I accidentally do that all the time, and then that defeats the purpose of being able to edit them or shift an element around later on. Okay, so from the set, my Bob Ross set, I'm going to use the tree branches, the tree branch brush, and it kind of, let me select a nice brown color, make sure I'm on a good layer. Yes. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move that above, sorry, so I can see it. And I'm just going to go ahead and start to lay in. This brush particularly fades out, so it's a little sketchy. So you can kind of find your way to thicken or thin out the trunk. And I'll just mess with it. It's pressure sensitive, and so you can get kind of thick to thin branches like that. And it doesn't have to be perfect at this stage, because you're going to be laying foliage in over it, unless it's fall and the trees are bare, the branches are bare. So I'm not going to really worry too much about it, just maybe a few really good solid ones to give me like the overall shape of whichever type of tree you're trying to create. So I'm doing kind of like an oaky shape, so around kind of lollipop general overall shape. So I'll go ahead and try to flesh it out just a little bit, because these are going to peek through the foliage. You want them to, so that your tree doesn't just look like a big, lollipop on a stick, and you get some peekaboo branches kind of thing. So like I said, this is pretty funky to begin with, but it's just a loose beginning. Okay, so I've laid out my rough, very, very rough trunk and branches, and I'm going to go ahead then on a second layer, go ahead and lay and tap in my foliage. So from that, I'm going to go ahead down to a specific brush that I made called the Happy Tree Foliage, and I put tap beside it just to remind you that you shouldn't be really stroking. You should go ahead and tap that. And I'm going to choose a darker green to lay that in, and you can adjust your size depending on the tree that you're making. But you're going to layer this in. So I'm going to start with a darker color, just very loosely, kind of generally get the overall shape. I don't want to go ahead and overpower the branches that I laid in, but I do want to just, start to build it. So again, just tap with that brush. And then you can lay in a second tone of green to try to get some variation and some depth from dark to light, light to shadow type of thing. And you can see that the branches behind are still visible. I mean, I can cover them if I really tap in one place to get a really thick covering of digital paint. And so I will continue to go ahead and build layers like this. I'll probably go back to the dark one and just kind of trade off with the size of each pass and the color too, to get depth. And again, like, I don't want to cover up every single area, because you do want, you can see through a tree in certain spots. Not all of them, depending on the season, but mostly you can. And so that's looking okay. Yeah, sometimes I also use the Happy Tree shadows and shrubs to get a secondary shape. Let me find a different green, something a little brighter. Oops, that's probably a little too bright, but maybe I would lay that in and then build on top of that. So this particular brush is more for like a shrub in the foreground. It's going to make more of a blob than the little individual leaves kind of thing. So I'm not really happy with that. I'm going to go back to the foliage, the tree foliage, and do that one again. And this color, I like the lighter one. Oops, probably a little too big. And something like that. So really, I'll go back now and refine the rest of the trunk as well with the secondary brown to give that, you know, figure some form and some turning in space and time. Be sure to go back to your trunk layer. And oops, go back to that brush and just continue to build that out and adjust that too, so you get a little bit of difference between you know, three-dimensional it turning because it's round, so you want the light to hit and wrap around so it's darker on one side. Awesome. So right now it looks like it's just sitting in space. There's no, you know, it doesn't really look like it's within the scene, which is not so great. So I will go ahead and over it, I will take back the shrub, tree shadows and shrub brush and go back to my foreground green. And I will go ahead and just blend that in so that it overlaps, so it doesn't look like it's just, you know, floating in space, to kind of cover up, just to incorporate it within so it feels like they're joined up kind of thing. So I know that's a bit funky, don't look at that. That's really it. Just keep building with your branches. Sometimes even if you've, you know, made this a little bit too opaque and you want to see a little peekaboo branch, go back and do it again. It's, you know, it doesn't matter how many layers that you do. You would do that if you were really painting. So let's see. The only problem is sometimes you have to figure out which layer you're on. Because I separated them, I have to do it within that. But I can give a little hint that it's hiding in there, and I'll probably go ahead and cover that back up just a little bit to make it incorporate, so it doesn't look too fakey fake. Yeah, I changed the brush. The color was wrong. There we go. Then go back and cover that up again. Just blend it in by overlapping it. So just continue to, yeah, build and use color. Remember to use color variations for depth of your branches. Experiment with layers, laying them in, the size of your brush of each particular one, and tapping, and that's it. And last, I want to remind you to go ahead and lay in your canvas texture, which comes with the brush set. If you overlay it in the topmost layer, it will help blend all your layers together visually and give you a nice canvas texture and make it kind of give a more believable oil painting classical look. You can play with the settings of that layer to, let me unlock it first, boop, boop, to see what the effects are if you prefer like a stronger contrast kind of thing. And that is it. All right, I hope you enjoy. Thanks, bye.